how deep does our connection with our planet really go? You just saw 0.1 hertz in the magnetic, the field line resonance frequencies. How deep does it go? I'm sorry, with Discovery, this is still 25. I took some things out and we did this. Well, the magnetic fields are giving us a clue. What we know is all life is linked to the magnetic fields. We know that, but scientists really got a sense of what that means through a tragedy. And some of you have seen this and some have not, but I'm going to do it to lead in to what I'm going to share with you here. Our magnetic fields, because all life is linked through the magnetic fields, the fields are monitored closely by satellites. And this is a record of 2 of them. They are called geosynchronous operational environmental satellites, GOES. There's 2 of them. This is GOES 1 and GOES 2. GOES 1 is in the red, GOES 2 is in the blue. I don't know if you can see this here. And every 30 minutes, the magnetic fields are measured, and they typically do the same thing. They ebb and they flow, and they ebb and they flow every 30. It's a pulse. Each box is a 24-hour day. And what you're seeing right here is a big spike in the magnetic fields right there. Right there. Scientists saw that spike and they said, wow, what in the world, what on earth could spike the magnetic fields of Earth to such a degree? That's a huge spike right there. What's going on? So they took the data and they laid it over a calendar of days and hours. And it's no surprise to you, that little arrow right there, where that spike begins, is about 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, September 11th, 2001. This is 9/11. Now, scientists have been conditioned to think that we are separate from our world, that we are essentially powerless victims of our environment. So what could 9/11 possibly, how could it possibly influence the magnetic fields of the planet? Well, this led them into a research project that is blowing the minds of scientists who have never been taught to think of integrated life forms in magnetic fields. Because what they began to see is this, that the collective emotion of humans responding to the image of 9/11 spiked that magnetic field, because the strongest magnetic field in the human body is the human heart. It's about 5,000 times stronger than the magnetic field of the brain. We have a magnetic field in the brain that's weak. It's why it's hard to think your way through the problems. It's much easier to feel your way to the solution. Ladies, you know that intuitively. So what the scientists began to understand, they said, is it possible? Is it possible that mass human emotion could influence the magnetic field of an entire planet? So they began an experiment. There's actually an experiment that was already working. And they went to this experiment to help understand what was happening. This is an experiment, began in Princeton University. Roger Nelson and Dean Radin at that time. Dean Radin was at Princeton. He is now lead scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, ions, if you follow the ions technologies. And what they did at Princeton was they developed this gadget right here. It's actually called an egg. They call them eggs for short. It is a random number generator. And they installed these throughout the earth, many places upon the earth. Let me just share with you, here's how this principle works. Random number generators do just that. They are electrically kicking out just random numbers, no sequence, no pattern, completely random. However, and this is what the experiment was all about, it's called the Global Consciousness Project, GCP. What they discovered was that our consciousness is so much a part of the magnetic field of the planet that we live on that our emotional experiences will change the readings on those random number generators. And they will change them in this way. when we are individually going about our day, just doing our things, here I am at Gaia, and, your mom's doing whatever she's doing, and your partner's doing whatever they're doing, not much coherence. When something happens and we all focus and direct our attention on one event, good or bad, doesn't have to be a bad thing. When we focus our attention, the numbers become less random. They become more ordered. And they went back after 9/11 and they said, is this a one-time deal? And what they found is it happens all the time. The death of Princess Diana, the whole world mourned, and the random numbers became very ordered. 9/11, numbers became ordered. Super Bowl Sunday, one of the highest readings that they ever had was a reality television program called The Bachelor. Because everybody loves a love story. The world loves a love story. The last episode of one of the seasons of The Bachelor, there were little boats in Vietnam in the canals with solar panels and TVs watching The Bachelor to see who she would choose. It was in India, it was in Cambodia, all over the world. People were, and the random number generators showed this. What this began to show is that humans have the ability to influence the magnetic field of this planet. Now, let me tell you why this is important. Because the science very clearly shows, military knows this, most industrial nations know this. When the magnetic fields are high, we are less aggressive, more cooperative, more willing to work together. And you remember for at least a couple of days after 9/11, we were almost a family on this planet. Remember that? People looked one another in the eyes, they hugged one another in ways that they hadn't, and then it all shifted. And scientists said, if the magnetic fields, if an elevated magnetic field can bring about peace and cooperation in response to a tragedy, can we do it without the tragedy? And the answer is yes. We're doing it all the time. Now, what I want to show you right now, this is a snapshot of the random number generator. Right now, I think there are 21 random number generators live, and at lunch, I was able to link into the server at Princeton. And if it is still running, I've got it in the tray. If it's still running, we can see this live. You want to see it? Let's see what this looks like. So here's the static image. And what you're seeing is, as they become less random, you're going to see these things spike. Let's see if I can get this up here. This is live TV, folks. There it is. Let's see, is it running? Yep, it's running. Okay. So right now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 21 of the random number generators that are live right now. They're sending back information. They're picking this information up. They're in resonance with the field. In the field of our planet, there is apparently no big one thing happening, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. If a spaceship landed on the lawn of the U.S. White House, just saying, or maybe a spaceship landed on the lawn of every capital of every nation simultaneously, and it was televised, and the whole world saw it, what you would see is the randomness would go away, and it would become more ordered because we are focused on this event. It's showing that consciousness is literally, not a metaphor, it's literally linked to the field of the planet that we live on, the magnetic field. This opened up a whole new arena of research. Now, this is Princeton University. It's called the Global Consciousness Project. All right, so I'm going to go back. Isn't that cool to see this? Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. We just got access to the server so we can see. So each one of these is numbered, and that number links to a location. I don't know where the locations are. And these are readings that are coming up, 0.5, 0.3, 0.2. There was a spike. Something happened right there. So there are locations where people are becoming more ordered, less random. There are experiments that are done where I've actually participated in experiments where we've led global meditations or global prayers, and it's been reflected on what you see right here. Let's see, how can I go back to this? Okay, right here, right there. Oh man, we're so high tech. All right, so here's what's happening. Here's they're called random number generators, RNGs. We're going to run over about 10 minutes, if that's okay. All right, so here are the random number generators. Now they become less random. They take all the information from those generators, they pool it into an algorithm. The algorithm plots one chart, and that's what you're seeing here. So here's random, random, random. Here's September 10th, and now here's September 11th. It starts here into here, September 11th. It becomes less random, less random. Look how ordered. All of a sudden it becomes, and here's the times. Here's 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when the first plane hit the first tower. Here is 10:30. I think this is when the plane hit the second tower. And it lasted, here's 9/11, and then it starts to go back and the less random. So the Institute of Heart Math, now that you're experts and familiar with heart math, took that information, it took that data, and asked a question and formed a hypothesis. Here's the hypothesis. The thinking is that strong collective human emotion, you're the only form of life that can consciously influence the magnetics of the planet you live on to create peace and cooperation when you need it the most. No other form of life can do that. Here's the hypothesis. Strong collective emotion has a measurable impact on the geomagnetic field of the Earth. It does. That hypothesis led to this project. The project is called now the Global Coherence Initiative. So it's gone from a project to an initiative. I'm proud to say I'm on the steering committee of this project. I support it. I believe in it. It's under the radar, so it's not regulated by any government organization. The military is fascinated, but they are not being given, they're given the data, but we want to keep this independent. We don't want this under the auspices of a federal organization or anything else. It's an independent, first of its kind study. Let me show you the statement of purpose. The Global Coherence Initiative, or GCI for short, it is the first science-based initiative ever designed for this sole purpose. The only purpose is to unite millions of people from varied beliefs and cultures and backgrounds and religions and spiritual traditions to shift global consciousness from instability and chaos to balance and cooperation. Never has a science project, they've done it as a side, never has the money been spent and the energy and the time and the technology and the expertise to develop a system to facilitate cooperation on a global level. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, can you feel that? I can feel it when I say it. Now, here's how it's happened. It's a two-phase program. The thinking is very simple, and this is why what you did is so powerful beyond your body. Global coherence, so where is it right there? Personal coherence leads to social coherence. It does. When you become coherent within your being, you influence people in the boardroom. I've done experiments. It's a hoot to see how people in the boardroom. Now, I'm not saying you walk into the boardroom and say, hey, I'm a coherent being, and I expect coherence. I would never do that. But when you carry yourself in coherence into a meeting, The meeting changes, people respond, and usually in a positive way. More willing to work together, better listeners, more willing to cooperate. Happens in the family. Experiments have shown in cities over 10,000 people, hospital room visits, emergency hospital room visits will decline. Violent crimes against people will decline. Crimes will decline while the coherence is in place, and when it stops, all those statistics reverse. So we know that there is an effect. It leads to social coherence, leads to global coherence. Boy, if we ever needed coherence, I can't think of a better time than right now. So look at what's happening. Look at the symmetry. It's only now, when we've reached the close of a cycle of time that was described in our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions, when the science is telling us that we are more polarized as a planet than we have ever been, when there is a movement and a struggle for power and control of our thoughts, our beliefs, our history, and our very humanness, and the technology is now available to impose other people's ideas of life upon our bodies. Only now do we have the ability to influence the field that connects all of that thinking. And the way that we do it is by following our most ancient and cherished spiritual principles of returning to our heart in a precise way. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Now, if you don't know that, if you're stuck in this little box, the world looks really scary. But I want to tell you, I've never been more optimistic. I'm a realist. We're going to go through some tough times before we get to wherever it is that we're leading ourselves. But we now have the tools and we're empowered to do it in a healthy way. We don't have to hurt one another. We don't have to lie. We don't have to create fear in young people to get them to think and act and believe in a certain way. We can. We're doing it. It's happening now, and you're seeing what the results are. There's another way. Now, let me show you how this works. This project, Global Coherence Initiative, 2 phases. First phase is we need to measure the fields. Those random number generators aren't the way to measure the fields. There's something else. And number 2, we need to feed the field. We need to positively influence those fields. And we know how, by creating coherence. So here's phase 1. Listening to the magnetic fields of the Earth. Could do it with satellites. They're very expensive. A lot of technology. HeartMath decided to use ground-based sensors. This is very cool. Here's what the first sensor looked like. All right, you can see the people stand by. Look how big this thing is. It's like almost 5 feet tall. But you know what happens with technology? As soon as it's developed, it's improved, usually miniaturized. And we went from this as the first sensor. If you like blueprints, there's what it looked like. These are measuring magnetic fields of the planet. If you like blueprints, here's what the new sensor looks like. And when you install it, it went from this to this. Who wouldn't want one of those in your yard? But you can't go in every yard. They're very specific places on Earth. They have to be very quiet places, geomagnetically quiet, tectonically quiet, electromagnetic field influence quiet, not a lot of traffic, a whole lot of parameters, groundwater, a lot of things. This is the first sensor, and this is at HeartMath headquarters. Right now, these are the active sensors, the ones I've circled. There is one in New Zealand that's active, one in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis, the medical community in Saudi Arabia sponsored a site. They wanted to be in on this from the very beginning, and they've been really good partners, the medical community. One in South Africa, one in Northern Europe, there is one in Canada, and there is HeartMath in the United States. The ones that are not circled are sites that are potential sites. All of this is funded only through personal contributions. No grants, nothing is, because we don't want to be beholden to anybody for anything. Keeping it independent, keeping it honest, and that's exactly what's happening. So phase 1 is listening to the Earth. The system works This is what 1 day's worth of data is showing. The bands that you see are the different striations of the magnetic fields of the Earth. The brightness is when it's active. Here is a whole month of data. This is the month of December. The system took Christmas Day off. The system was down for some reason a couple of other days, but this is a month of data. Phase 2 is feeding the field in a positive way. Human emotion influences the field, and what we just did in here is how you feed the field. The field only knows chaos or coherence. Here's why this is important. If you want social change and you riot angrily in the streets, are you creating chaos in the field, or are you creating coherence in the field? Yeah, people ask me and they said, Gregg, why aren't you out there supporting all of the protests? And I said, because if you understand the principles of cooperation and coherence, that is not the way to do it. Buckminster Fuller told us that. You find a better way. There are ways to protest, but it's heart-based protest. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't times when, World War II is a perfect example of fighting tyranny that had been allowed to reach such a point. It had to be met with that force. But we now know we don't have to allow it to go that far in the presence of cooperation. Phase 2. This is, I want to show you, it's just not 9/11. This was when Barack Obama was elected. The whole world was watching when that happened, and what you saw was the randomness become much more ordered. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you can see the red, you can see it, the randomness disappeared because people were watching what was happening. Here is the information. Here are the days. The inauguration was on the 20th. So here you can see from in the upper left, 16, 17, 18, 19. There's 20. The red arrow is the inauguration. Look how quiet the field got in the next day right after that. People were in shock. They said, my God, Obama is in. And the field became very quiet. Now, scientists are really cautious. They don't say it's because of this. They say there's a correlation. They don't like to say this made this happen. So as a scientist, I have to say to you, there's a high correlation between the time Obama was inaugurated and the way the field responded. And it's worth exploring. And that's what we're doing right now. All right? Here you can see this was actually on February 14th, 2009, World Sound Healing Day, facilitated by my dear, dear brother and his wife right here in Boulder, Colorado. Jonathan Goldman and his wife, Andy Goldman, Andrea Goldman, facilitate World Sound Healing Day every Valentine's Day. And they teamed up with Princeton to see if there was an effect, and there is, and here it is. The world, during the time of World Sound Healing Day became, I'm just going to give up on the laser. I'm pointing and nothing's happening. Became more coherent, more ordered. Now the question is it the sound? Maybe. Or is it the consciousness and the sound is facilitating that? In other words, would it happen even if there was no sound, if everyone were praying at the same time? That's worth study. That's what we're doing right now. Here it is. You can see what happened, and you can see the correlations. Random, and this is over the days, February 11th, 12th, 13th, and now we come to February 14th. The randomness begins to go away, becomes more ordered because millions of people are focused on World Sound Healing Day, and look how quiet the field becomes compared. The bright is the noise, and look how quiet it becomes, and it lasts, and then it begins to change and go back to whatever is happening. All this to say that we have the potential to influence the field that connects all life, the field that can create peace, cooperation, and love in our communities, in our societies, in our nation, and between nations on this planet through our soft technology of being pure human. You don't need transhumanism to do that. You're not imposing a field. You could build a machine and you could impose 0.01 hertz in the field, and because just like using chemicals in the body, people aren't ready to accept that. It's going to be very, very irritating to their system. They'll resist that. But when it comes from within us, and we have become that field, we become that 0.1 hertz, it's a whole different story. So right now, the Global Coherence Initiative, GCI, it is made of people right now in over 104 countries, and that number is probably outdated. Every place you see a heart on this map is a Global Coherence Initiative site where people are feeding the field coherence. Now, one heart does not necessarily mean one person. So in Japan, for example, they have groups that wake up, they work a lot in Japan. They're usually at work by 6 or 7 in the morning. It's 4 a.m. They go into a theater. 300 to 400 people in the theater taking the time to feed the field and love Mother Earth, create coherence. Then they go home, get ready, and go to work. So those 300 or 400 people only show up as one node because there's only one computer online. They go online to do this, and you can as well. And this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. If you're interested in what I'm saying here, absolutely no charge, no cost to you, you can go to www.heartmath.org, and everything is there. You can click on the technical stuff, you can read the research, you can see about the sensor sites, you can go to the social sites, you can become part of a community that receives a notice every month on the full moon, and they will typically have what's called a heart focus for some event. Maybe it's COVID, maybe it's the fires in Australia, or the fires in California, or the fires in Washington, or the fires in Oregon, the fires in Colorado, the fires in New Mexico. Get the idea, tough summer. Or something like that, and you can contribute in as little or as much of a way as you choose to do. So people ask all the time, what can I do to create a better world? Rather than reinventing the wheel on your own, if you'd like to join a science-based project that is really well established and well underway, this might be the answer. So I wanted to share this with you in closing today, because what you're now discovering, if you didn't know already, is that while personal coherence is good for you, global coherence is really good for the planet. And every time you create that personal coherence, you are feeding the field. So one of my practices at the end of every day before I go to bed, I ask the question, what did I feed the field today? And if my answer is not the answer I would like, I don't judge myself. I say, tomorrow, let's do a better job. Because when we feed that field, we're loving ourselves, loving the people of this planet, even those that don't know they're being loved. Because not everybody's at the same place. Not everybody's understanding in the same way. And they won't. That's the way we work. This is where we are with our technology right now. So the Global Coherence Initiative is the HeartMath Initiative. I'm not going to show that. What I'm going to do is this. We began yesterday morning. I said there's a battle playing out for our story. You know what that is all about. But there's a deeper battle, the ultimate battle for our very humanness. And I made a statement. I said, I'm not against the technology. But once we embrace it, we can't go back, because we will lose the biology that gives us our uniqueness. So before we give ourselves to the technology, how do we know how much of ourselves to give away? Until we know who we are. And my goal, my prayer, my dream in sharing this with you today is that hopefully you have a little bit better sense of what it means to be pure human. It may become a rare aspect of our species if we choose this transhuman path. It may be that the pureness of who we are becomes something that becomes scarce. But I think it's worth preserving, it's worth honoring, it's worth understanding, And if we have to, it's worth fighting for. Because we are the only ones of our kind known to exist. And there's something so precious and unique about us that cannot be replicated through a machine. So this is the ultimate battle. I hope that you felt that this 2 days, it's a celebration of our humanness. It is a love story because we're loving ourselves in new and exciting ways. And it's a celebration of the most radical act of power that I could ever invite you to share with me, the radical act of changing the way you think about yourself and your relationship to the world. How many of you feel like we've accomplished this in some degree? Do you feel that you're able to think of yourself differently than you were when you came in? Yes, no? Let me see a show of hands. Who? Well, if that's true, then we've done our work well together. That's going to be the close of this program together. I've empowered you with knowledge, with discoveries. I've empowered you with techniques, and I've empowered you with the reasons to think differently. And that is what pure human at the crossroads of biology and transhumanism is all about. So with that, I'm going to close our program today. This is what we came together to do. We've run over probably, 10 minutes? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? What time is it? I'm curious. I estimated I'd run over 10 minutes. What time is it? Okay, so I went over 12 minutes. I was close. I want to thank you all for just being so kind, for sharing a part of your life with me in the command module of the spaceship Gaiosphere as we navigate our way through the field of consciousness. I hope you've enjoyed these couple of days being in this place as much as I've enjoyed being here with you. I want to thank Gaia. You guys are all working on the weekend. Thank you all for coming in on your weekend to make this possible. Charlie, you came in from another state, left your family behind to come and be with us in the way that you have. I love you, my brother, and I appreciate that. All of our security people that helped us, all of our camera people, our sound people, behind that wall, there literally is a bank of computers and monitors. It looks like Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston doing the streaming. Can't see them, but you guys are looking at us. We love you. Thank you so much. Our streaming audience, if you're still with us, we love you as well. Thank you for sharing your time, and thank your family for sharing you with us. And with that, I'm going to close this day, and I think we should take the rest of the day off. All right? I love you all. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the day, and be safe in your world. Thank you.